What's up everybody, and welcome back to the Lethal Games channel. I apologize for the lack of in-depth reviews in the past month, but the next couple of videos will be full reviews, including this one. Today we'll be taking a look at Fortnite's Battle Royale mode. When Fortnite first came out with its Save the World PvE mode, I produced a bunch of content for it, and since then Fortnite has released a PvP Battle Royale mode that is directly competitive with PlayerUnknown's Battleground. I'll be taking a dive into Fortnite Battle Royale, and inevitably there will be a lot of comparisons to PUBG. If you're curious about this Fortnite PvP mode, then this is the video for you. I'll be going over graphics, gameplay, their business model, and much more. With all that said, let's get into it. Graphically, Fortnite has decided to go with the Blizzard ethos of cartoony graphics that lends itself to fantastic PC performance and optimization. Simply put, the game runs great on PC, though I can't comment on the console versions. You'll find a decent selection of graphical options along with some interesting gameplay settings, including peripheral RGB syncing if you're into that sort of thing. I ran into no issues at all during my sessions, and everything runs silky smooth. This itself might be a huge reason why people might choose Fortnite over PUBG. Since its inception, PUBG has been infamous for its poor optimization and performance, even on high-end gaming systems. What's interesting is that both PUBG and Fortnite run on Epic's Unreal Engine, but the performance and graphical style is night and day. If you want a more light-hearted visual style that runs great, Fortnite is clearly the game for you. But if you want a more realistic military sim at the cost of performance, then PUBG will be right up your alley. The main gameplay loop of Fortnite is the same as any other Battle Royale game. You enter the map with the goal of being the last person or team standing. Each game consists of 100 players regardless of the game mode, and players are deployed onto the map via a battle bus that travels across the island. There are of course advantages and disadvantages to various landing locations. Because the game will gradually force players into smaller area via a growing storm of death, it is usually safer to land somewhere in the middle. The direction in which the safe area shrinks is random, but landing in the center means you'll have on average the lowest travel distance to the safe area. But this also means that many more people will land in the center, and you'll have a much harder time making it out alive. I find tilted towers to be easily the most populated landing zone. Of course, if you enjoy the thrill of combat and you're up for a challenge, then landing here would be the best spot. However, if you want a more strategic and maybe tactical position, perhaps landing somewhere just off center would be ideal. That way it's a good balance between the geographical location and the number of players you'll encounter. Usually, landing on the edges of the map means you'll be playing a running simulator unless you're lucky enough to have the circle shrink in your direction. Once you hit the ground though, it's usually a scramble to run into houses and grab weapons and loot as fast as you can. In Fortnite, there's a couple of different types of loot. You've got your weapons, your consumables, ammo, and building materials. Weapons are pretty self-explanatory. You've got your classic categories like pistols, assault rifles, submachine guns, shotguns, and snipers. All the major categories are covered. Each weapon has its own ammo type and rarity as well, though in my opinion the rarity grade of the weapon isn't overly significant. It's much more important to pick up a gun that you're comfortable with and has enough ammo for use. Weapons can be found either laying on the ground, in chests, and of course on the corpse of your enemy. As for consumables, you have bandages, first aid kits, bombs, and grenades. In addition, Fortnite also has shield potions that come in various forms. These shields act as a buffer and needs to be removed before enemies can deal damage to your HP. And finally, we have construction material. What makes Fortnite unique is the ability to build, but in order to do so, you're going to need building materials. There are three types of material: wood, stone, and metal. The difference between them is in their durability and their source. Materials can be found lying on the ground, in chests, but for the majority, you'll have to actually harvest them. Everyone starts off the game with a pickaxe, which can be used as a melee weapon as well. This pickaxe enables you to destroy practically everything you can see in the game, from trees to buildings to vehicles, anything at all. Destroying things will yield material, and that lets you build. The entire building mechanic is what really differentiates Fortnite. You get 4 basic shapes to build, and after constructing these pieces, you can then edit them for even more unique shapes and combinations. In the regular Save the World mode, building forts is absolutely essential, but in PvP, that's not entirely the case. More often than not, it's a mechanic used to enable players to reach places quicker. Whether it's just going up a hill, or crossing a canyon, or building stairs to gain height advantage over your opponent, seldom do you find players constructing huge forts. Once you get to about 10 or so players, and everyone is funneled into a small area, that's when players really start constructing giant towers. How fast and efficient you are at building can be the difference between taking bullet shots and sniping comfortably in your tower. The ability to build fast and efficiently is a good way to differentiate between good and bad players. But with that said, it is still possible to win without building at all. It's just a lot harder, and you'll likely need a bit of luck. Obviously, obviously, being an FPS game, the ability to aim and shoot is ultimately what makes the player successful. And although I am personally not an avid FPS player, I have noticed the gunplay can be a little off. The accuracy and the spread of the weapons isn't always consistent, and the hardcore FPS players may notice this right off the bat. If you're someone who falls into this category, then Fortnite may turn you off. The good news is that Epic Games looks to be addressing this, and they've been doing shooting tests and are actively tweaking the system. How well they fix it though remains to be seen. But this does bring something positive to light. The developers are very active and listen to the community. They push out weekly patches that adds new items, bug fixes, and extra game functions. I'm actually pretty impressed with how consistent they are with their updates. What I would love to see from Epic Games is more weapon variety, or at least more weapons that actually feel useful. They've got all the categories covered with about 2 weapons of each type, but I find myself always gravitating towards the standard assault rifle or a pump shotgun. Maybe it's just me and my personal preference, but they have a ton of weapons they could easily add to the game because they're already part of their PvE mode. On top of that, I'd also like to see the addition of melee weapons as well. As of right now, the only melee weapon in the game mode is your pickaxe, which doesn't do much damage at all. However, in their PvE mode, they have 6 different categories of melee weapons, so they don't even have to design new ones, they just simply need to add them in. Another big feature they could add is an additional map. At the moment, Fortnite has a single map, which is relatively small. Adding an additional map would inject some much needed diversity to the game and will likely attract old players back as well as new ones. One thing they could do is introduce bigger maps that add additional features that are map specific, for example, vehicles. I understand that with a small map size, having vehicles might throw off the game balance, and I think that with the current map size and character run speed, it's actually in a good place. However, if they decide to add a separate map, the developers can experiment with different things like vehicles without ruining the core experience of the original game. All these features that I'd like to see out of Fortnite are things that PUBG is currently better at, and if Fortnite wants to overtake PUBG as the undisputed Battle Royale title, then they will need to fill up some of these gaps. Now, a lot of people may call Fortnite a PUBG clone or a PUBG copycat, and while I do agree that there are striking similarities in gameplay, I will also argue that it's simply the nature of the genre. For those who are unaware, Battle Royale was actually a Japanese movie released almost 2 decades ago that has the same premise of this popular new genre. For Westerners, a more relatable and modern rendition of the Battle Royale movie is The Hunger Games. In addition, prior to PUBG, there was also the Arma mod as well as DayZ and H1Z1, all with practically identical gameplay DNA. Similarly, in the MOBA genre, Dota was originally a Warcraft 3 mod that spawned numerous other games in the genre such as Heroes of Newerth, Smite, Dota 2, and of course League of Legends. Again, all these games have practically the same core gameplay, but as we saw with League's development, it quickly differentiated itself as the quintessential MOBA title and overtook Dota 2 in popularity. There are a lot of parallels in the birth of the MOBA and Battle Royale genres. In my opinion, Fortnite is looking to differentiate itself from the rest of the pack, much like League did in the beginning. Fortnite is arguably the most unique of any Battle Royale game that has come before it because it includes the elements of resource collection and building. Any Fortnite player will tell you how essential construction is if you want to be victorious in the end. It adds a ton of depth to the gameplay and allows players to reach places they otherwise wouldn't, create advantages both offensively and defensively, and simply gives good players more room to outplay others. So why has Fortnite grown so fast in such a short period of time? One obvious answer is that it's actually a very polished version of PUBG, but I think an even bigger contributing factor is that it's free to play. Being such a new genre, a lot of people may be intrigued but hesitant from trying due to financial barrier to entry. Prior to Fortnite, there hasn't been any real free-to-play Battle Royale titles, and Epic Games was able to capture a huge market because of it. They've recently announced a new milestone where they hit 3.4 million concurrent players, and their Twitch numbers consistently outperform PUBG. Something that greatly helps them is their business model. The entire game is free to play with no gimmicks. All the microtransactions are entirely cosmetic based and offer nothing in terms of gameplay advantage or even player convenience, which is as fair as you can get while remaining sustainable. They do have a seasonal pass that grants players even more cosmetic rewards for every tier they reach. This seasonal pass is currently available for 900 V-Bucks, but Epic Games has stated that they will be charging real money for it in the future. If the price is around $10 to $15, I think that's a fair price to pay for the amount of additional cosmetics that you do get. And I want to stress that this battle pass only grants you extra seasonal specific cosmetics and is entirely optional. In fact, free-to-play players also also get a few of these cosmetics for reaching certain tiers during the season, just not as much. Overall, Fortnite Battle Royale reminds me a lot of what League of Legends used to be before it got really popular. Many called it a cartoon clone of the original, but it eventually sprouted its own wings and became a juggernaut in the genre. I think Fortnite has the potential to do the very same. As of right now, it's already a very polished experience and drawing in a lot of new players. With Epic's announcement of Paragon's End, it's logical to assume that the company may be redirecting even more resources to Fortnite's development. If you're curious at all about Fortnite or the Battle Royale genre, I do recommend giving Fortnite a go. It is a Battle Royale game that is relatively friendly to more casual players and feels a lot more welcoming. But if you want a more gritty and realistic military style Battle Royale, then PUBG is still undeniably the king. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you liked the video, please support the channel by subscribing and smashing that thumbs up button. I'll be reviewing a few indie games coming up soon, so make sure you don't miss those. You can follow me on Twitter for channel updates, game news, and deals. That's all from me, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.